Right? I know. I feel like
we're going to hook you up.
You finished checking out your junk?
Yeah. You tell me when we're ready to go.
Good, we're ready. We've been on the phone.
We've been live? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Off the Lip Radio Show. I believe, Neil, this is show number 547.
Who knows?
We lost count, but it's a lot. And tonight we have a great show for you guys. So everyone on Facebook Live, thanks for tuning in. Santa Cruz Waves, thank you for letting us be here to share the stuff that we enjoy sharing. Tonight, Neil, we've been talking about this.
We've waited a long time for this.
Man, oh man, we've been talking about this thing, and if anyone who follows the show knows how much we bashed this thing. Tonight on the show, by the way, let's introduce our guest.
Please.
Dr. David Ebert is here tonight. Thank you for being here.
World-renowned shark expert, regular on Discovery Channel's Shark Week.
El Jefe of Shark Week.
Enough said.
Yes.
Right.
Also, Sean Roby is here tonight.
Sean Roby here.
Great supporter of the show. Fill us in.
Supports the show. I'm very surprised he keeps writing me checks. Because we absolutely tear him apart. And we're about to settle something that's been hanging out it's been going for a long time.
Right. Yeah. I want to know if this is true.
We may have to apologize to Sean.
Possibly.
May? Oh no, you're gonna apologize. There's no. It's happening.
Neil, jump right in. Explain to me what we're talking about.
We're talking about. Well, I've surfed with Sean for a long time, and many years. And Sean came up with this thing that he bought online that repels sharks. In fact, it repels bull sharks, which there hasn't been a bull shark in Santa Cruz County in probably 3,000 years.
The doctor will fill us in on that. Okay.
20 million.
Yeah, okay.
20 million years.
Okay, so we've already debunked that bull sharks don't live here.
Yeah. So this thing that he wears on his bracelet, I'm not sure if it's a pedophile bracelet or something.
It looks like
it's like an anklet, basically.
It's an anklet bracelet that's
parole.
supposed to repel sharks.
Hold it. El Jefe's laughing already.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So maybe we should get a look at it.
Yeah, could we get
Sean, where's it at?
Oh,
Here it is right here. It kind of looks like a watch almost.
Yeah, it looks like an Apple Watch.
A big Apple Watch.
Dave, are you familiar with this item, by the way?
What's your parole officer think?
I've got 6 weeks to go, and then it's off. Yeah,
I keep that on then.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
So Doc,
Yeah.
David Ebert, #1 shark expert on the planet.
He says, I'm still alive.
It's 100% right now.
Well,
There you
So
go.
am I. I don't wear one.
is this a condom with a
You're on a
hole in it?
ship.
What is this?
Let me see it.
It's a magnet.
It's a magnet. It brings in sharks.
Oh, maybe I saw the infomercial.
It puts out like electromagnetism,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's how you attract sharks.
That's how you would
Sharks navigate by the electromagnetic field in the earth.
I thought it was supposed to like confuse them. Because I've also seen where the guys have these electronic strips that are on their boards now too. That
Yeah, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I can sell you.
Yeah, all right. So what you're saying is I got swindled of $80.
I probably.
$80.
But more importantly, now I lost my security blanket. So now I got to face reality.
Hey, I'll go buy you one at Toys R Us.
Now, just remember, ignorance is bliss.
Right. I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to wear this.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everybody the shark guy said,
Yeah.
this is awesome.
You tell somebody who's probably not watching that, you can sell it to them for $100.
Right, exactly.
So let's get to the bull sharks. You said there's no bull sharks ever 20 million years?
The closest you have to go into Baja to find bull sharks, and there's always been some kind of question whether or not there's been some records from Southern California. There's never been any confirmation, but you go down to Baja, you get down to like Magdalena Bay, Gulf of California. Oh yeah, there's bull sharks. Definitely
Aggressive.
bull sharks.
Are they angry sharks?
They're angry sharks. Well, here's the thing with bull sharks. If you're in clear water, they won't generally bother you. They'll kind of keep back. They'll be really shy. But when the visibility declines, like at night, or if you get in turbid water, like around river mouths and stuff, then they get really aggressive and they get really frisky. And then look out. You'll be in a lot of trouble.
Doc, if you were to go diving in the Bay of Magdalena and there's bull sharks everywhere, the water was murky, would you feel secure putting this on and swimming out there?
Yes.
That's my man. Let's just say that before this discussion, we had a discussion, and he's my man.
How much you pay you to say that?
Okay,
Not at
so,
liberty to disclose that.
so
Yeah, right.
Sean thinks this works. He feels good about it. He's going to keep going out there. So maybe mentally it's worth the $80 just that he thinks it works?
You probably could have got a comfort blanket for half that price.
Do you sell them?
Yes, I can.
All right, there we go.
And you see, we know what to get Sean for Christmas: a comfort blanket.
He's going to need that.
Well, here's the thing. Sort of, different sharks behave differently towards magnetic fields. And so, like, you might find something that might deter some sharks, and others will attract them.
So in the video, it showed they wrapped this thing around something, and the bull sharks would not attack the dummy.
But it was probably the water's really clear, so you could really tell they're bull sharks.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, you wouldn't need that because that's how bull sharks behave. If it's
it.
clear water, they'll kind of stay there. I can tell you from experience, you can't even get close to them things. They're like one of the four most dangerous sharks in the world. If the water's clear, you can't get very close to them. But I can tell you that water visibility goes down, they get really bold and they get really aggressive. So like if you're in like a really murky water you couldn't see at all, I wouldn't trust that at all.
Okay. You've just dashed my dreams.
So if it doesn't work for bull sharks,
Can we take it off and throw it in the garbage can?
Wait a minute, I'm a parole officer.
You get in 6 weeks.
well, Neil,
This has been the biggest buzzkill I've ever had.
well, we wanted to find out because we were terrified that you might get bit wearing it.
I think I'm more afraid to wear it now. He's saying that it
Well,
attracts
now you're
them.
attracting sharks, Sean.
I'm going to put it on
You got to
Neil's
stop
board.
surfing near him.
No, absolutely.
Well, no, he's actually want to be with him because he's the guy they're going to go for.
Oh,
No,
there
I
you go.
put pieces of chum below Neil's big ship that he stands on and goes around there. So it's like a vessel. It's like a shipping vessel. He's swimming out there.
Well, change the subject.
You tie a mackerel onto it.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Let's focusing on him. We're focusing on me.
Are you going to keep wearing it?
I don't know. I'm on the fence now. You're saying that this thing could actually attract sharks?
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, it depends on the sharks. I mean, around here, the main shark you'd be concerned about would be a white shark.
Yeah.
But and I don't know how they'd behave around something like that, but I can tell you that they've tried this thing literally going back to post World War II, looking at different types of magnetisms and all kinds of other types of things to deter sharks. And with some of these things, they find some sharks it will deter, but some sharks it attracts. And so when you have something like, with like a white shark, you'd have to well, does it work for white sharks? I wouldn't care. I wouldn't give a shit about bull sharks up here in Monterey Bay. To be honest with you.
So what is the best thing for white sharks to deter them, other than not going surfing?
Stay out of the water.
Yeah,
Would it
that's
be,
a bad solution.
No, I know. It's like, it's like you always hear the statistics. Your chance of getting hit by lightning or getting an auto accident going to the beach to surf is much greater than a shark attack. In California, they have since 1950. There's been between 0 and 8 attacks a year in California. In 1950, the population was about 15 million people. Now we're at 40 million people. The average number of attacks a year is 3 to 4, and it's been that consistent since 1950 to now. So
Even though there's more people in the
there's
water.
more people in the water. There's more people doing things now, and the number of the ratio of attacks has not changed at all. Really, it's like right around 3 or 4 a year, and it's mostly white sharks, not all, but mostly. And so I tell that to people because you think it's not really, it's such a low number when you got 15 to 40 million people, but the number of attacks haven't changed.
Right.
So you go in the water. I grew up around here as well. It's like you go in the water, you might go in the forest, you might see a bear, you might see a mountain lion, you might see a shark.
True.
we call you the doc, but you're a published author. You've written multiple books on this subject, correct?
Yeah, about 30 books.
30 books
Yeah.
you've written on
And
just the shark subject.
And I have literally written the Sharks of the World book.
Wow.
And the new edition's coming out this summer, July 20th, by the way. So,
He might be debunking me.
Yeah.
So you keep finding new species of sharks?
yeah, I mean, I'm known as the lost shark guy.
Right.
Because I'm like the guy that goes and looks for everything but white sharks. Like if I tell you, for example, if I said, do you know how many species of sharks there are in the world?
Not a clue.
If I told you there's over 1,250 species of sharks,
That would be shocking.
you'd be shocked. Yeah. And I mean, then when I talk about sharks in the general term like that, I'm also counting the rays, because rays are flat sharks. But if you looked at just even what you would consider just a typical shark, there's about 540 species worldwide. So it's basically, we take out white sharks or tiger sharks, the big bull sharks, the big toothy ones. everybody's familiar with those, but it's all these other sharks I go look for.
Do all the other sharks not attack people, and that's why we don't know them?
Well, over 80% of all sharks don't get more than about 5-6 feet maximum length. 50% of sharks don't get more than 3 feet. In fact, there's some sharks I can literally hold in the palm of my hand. They don't get any bigger than that. And people don't, unless you know what you're looking for, they don't even recognize those as sharks. So there's just a whole array of sharks. Now you put that in context, and what unites like the sharks and the rays is that they have a cartilaginous skeleton, whereas all the other fishes you think of, like the rockfish, the flatfish, the salmon, they're bony fishes. There's over 34,000 species of those worldwide. So, relatively speaking, the sharks are a smaller group, but they're very, but they occupy like a high trophic level. They're kind of the top predator in whatever ecosystem they're in. Even the smaller species tend to feed on everything else out there.
Are there more sharks we haven't found yet? You're going?
I got
you have
three,
a trip planned?
I got 3 new ones coming out in the next month. I mean, I've discovered new species out here.
In Monterey Bay.
Yeah.
Will my shark band work on any of those?
No, well, if you're diving at about 5,000 feet, you might run into it. But these are deep sea things.
So what are you using? How are you finding them?
Well, a lot of times there are things that they're caught as bycatch. Sometimes incidental catches. Sometimes some of the ones around here I was able to document it around here because of some of the Mombari video, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. But you can't document you can document like, oh, that's something unusual. And there's a couple species out here, very deep sea species, that I haven't been able to get specimens of, because you have to actually have a specimen to describe it from, and then it has to be deposited in a museum, because it's a historical archive is what it is. It's like an artifact, and you have to write a detailed description of it to document why is this thing different. You can't just say, oh, that looks different. You have to be able to describe and determine why the species is different.
And where's that museum?
Well, like the California Academy of Sciences.
San Francisco?
Yeah, San Francisco is one. There's the American Museum, the Smithsonian. There's a number of them. The Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History. These are things you don't see in the public when you go down there, because they're usually behind the scenes, where if you're visiting scientists or if you're with a school group, sometimes they'll take you behind the scenes to show you what goes on, where the research goes on behind the scenes.
What got you started? Were you a marine biologist to start with, and then lean to what, sharks, or
no?
No.
Well, now this is a word of caution for parents out there. When I was about 5 years old, my parents gave me a book on sharks, and I thought these were like the coolest things I'd ever seen. Now, when you're 5 years old, sharks, dinosaurs, whales, they're all kind of cool, but you think the kid's going to grow out of it. And when I was about 10 years old, I thought, I want to study sharks, and I want to travel the world, and I want to figure out some way to get paid to do that. And I'm like 10 years old. I have no flipping idea how you do that. But that was but I had something to work towards in life. And so everything I did was, I went about, just did my usuals, most kids growing up. But I always had a thing that I wanted to go, where I wanted to study sharks when I grew up. And as I went on, I went to college, I went to Humboldt State, and then I went to grad school over here at Moss Landing Marine Laboratories, did my master's. And I was kind of fortunate because the movie Jaws came out in 1975, and people kind of laugh at it and stuff. And I was in high school at the time, and some people have like a negative connotation from the movie Jaws, because everybody goes out and goes after sharks and stuff. Well, that's maybe partially true, but what happened was before Jaws came out, sharks, there was a shark attack. Nobody really, there was a shark attack. After that, people got more interested in shark attacks, but what that led to was people got more interested in well, how many shark species are there out there, and like how many young do they have, and how old do they get? And I was really fortunate because I was in that first wave of young shark researchers when the thing really took off in the early 80s. And at the time, my professor, I went to Moss Landing, Greg Kaye, is just starting up a shark research program there. And so I was really fortunate to catch that wave and to go study sharks. And it's basically what's led me here to where I am today. I just never grew out of that fact.
So that movie spawned your career?
Yeah, literally it did, yeah. And many people like me in our career that really took off. Literally before that, there was almost no research on sharks.
Right.
That movie terrified me.
Oh, terrible.
I didn't go in the ocean for like a year after that movie came out.
Yeah, because the shark was going after you. It was like chasing you. It had a memory.
And that actually leads me into my next question is, so this population has increased, 3 or 4-fold on the coast of California. Yeah. We're having the same amount of shark attacks. Mm-hmm. Is it because maybe great white sharks don't like to eat humans?
Well, let me ask you a question. Back up. Does anybody know how many shark species occur off California?
No.
No idea.
9. I'm throwing out there.
The Rays included. You gotta remember that.
No,
17.
Okay. If you count the rays, you got 70 species. But just the sharks, if you take away the rays and the sharks, you got 70 species. If you just look at the sharks, there's 44 species
In our bay.
that occur off California. But in the bay here, it's like 23. There's a few of them that only occur off southern. They only come up in warm water years to Southern California. Like you get once in a while you get a hammerhead up here, but mostly you get hammerheads and a few species in Southern California. But there's 43, there's 44 shark species. There's about another 26 species of rays and a couple species of ghost sharks.
So
Wow.
why all of a sudden the popularity of the sharks out here by the cement boat? Is that going back years, or is it something that just became
a couple things happened. One is, and the first one is that back in the early mid-'70s, you had the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and so basically they protected all the seals, whales, and everything, and that was very successful. So, they should talk about that. One of the problems with conservation, they never talk about the success. They'll tell you all the bad things going on, but when you have a win, you should put one up on the board and say, hey, we did something good here.
Yeah,
so anyway, so what happens is, the seal population went up. Well, what happened was there's more food, so we can have more little sharks. And so that was one of the things that took place. And then the other thing that happened also was in 1994, California passed a ban on shark. You couldn't go out and catch white sharks. If they're caught incidentally or by mistake, that's one thing, but you couldn't go out and target them. Now that was never really a problem in California, but I was fortunate that I did my PhD in South Africa, and I was there in the late '80s, early '90s.
which is that the waters off of South Africa is teeming with them.
Oh,
right?
there's plenty of white sharks down there, and actually at the time, as I told you guys a story earlier, that we used to go down there and you go out to Seal Island, you can see these sharks breach out of the water. Now, if you flip on any TV show now, you see the sharks coming out looking spectacular. But in the late '80s, the first time I came home from South Africa, and I was telling people, hey, these white sharks come out of the water, they thought I was nuts.
Hold it for a second, because we've seen one.
We saw one out here,
Oh, they do it out here. They do it out here. It's not.
Yeah.
Just so people, this is not unique to South Africa. They do it everywhere.
The one we saw jump, it was angry. Its mouth was open. Its back was arched, and it made a big splash.
They come out. They're preening for the camera and for you guys out there.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah. So, but they do that here. They do that here, but just and actually there's a photograph, a little known photograph. If you go to there's a National Geographic article, 1968, on sharks, and if you can find that issue, and I have a copy of it. There's a white shark breaching down in Baja that somebody captured on film. And they just said, oh, shark breaching, but it's a white shark. So it's been well known, and if you're around Cape Town, it's like, yeah, the shark's breached, yeah, big deal. But people didn't realize it goes on everywhere. And the thing is the guy who captured on film down there, Chris Fallows, he did that about 2-3 years after I left. And of course, I'm thinking I could have done that and become world famous too. So it's not, it's definitely not something unique. If you're out here, you can see it occur out here. I've seen it out at the Farallon Islands.
Why did they do that?
Sometimes it has to do with feeding. Some of the other things, I don't know for sure why it's a behavior. I've seen other sharks do similar types of things. They'll come up and they'll spy hop, or they'll put their head out of the water, like seven-gill sharks, which are common around here. They'll come up, they'll spy hop, they'll put their head out of the water and look. And white sharks are known to do that, and there's a few species of sharks that'll do that. Why they're doing that? Can they really, if they put their head out of the water, can they really see? Because their vision's going to be very different being in the water. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
What's the most significant thing you've learned throughout all your career in the life of sharks?
It's the most significant thing is that we don't know very much about them even after all this time.
Right.
There's still a lot to learn. We're still even trying to figure out the species out there. Now, a lot of my background is actually in ecology and life history, but I got more into the looking for these things because I'd find these species, and that's an entirely new species of science. Nobody even knows this thing exists.
It must be amazing to hold something that no one's ever seen before.
Oh, it is, yeah. When you get, most of the time when I collect stuff, you have this you kind of I think that might be different. You're not sure, but every once in a while you get this sort of eureka moment, oh yeah, that's something that's so different, But most of the time you're kind of you think it's new, but once in a while you get that moment, you're just oh, this is awesome.
You're kind of Sir Hillary of the shark world. Do you get to name the sharks that you discover?
Oh, hell yeah.
So give us a couple of names.
Okay, well,
For the radio show.
Well, I had
Dr. Robi.
one of the cool ones is I named one after my niece, Lana, and she when she graduated college at University of San Francisco a few years ago, I thought it was kind of cool. I wanted to do something kind of memorable for her, so I named this. It's called a sawshark, and it's different than a sawfish. It's a shark. It's a shark. It has a long saw-like nose, and it's from the Philippines. It's a very rare shark, and I named that one after hers. It's called Lana Sawshark. And then, not to be outdone, of course, she has a brother. And so a couple years ago, when he graduated college, I had to name something after him. So I named a guitar shark after him, Austin's guitar shark, and that was from South Africa.
And it's different than the other guitar sharks?
Very different. Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, it's flat.
It's
very
Austin.
It's Austin. You ask him about it. You know? And it was a really cool thing is last year when I was doing a Shark Week show in South Africa, we found one of these things diving off of Durban. And if you wait to catch the show, The Extinct or Alive, Land of the Lost Sharks, there's a little segment in there of this Austin's guitar shark.
No way.
So, yeah, it was totally cool. It was
Oh,
totally
that is cool.
So I got kind of Uncle of the Year points on those. So.
Should we talk about the wetsuit?
We should talk about the wetsuit.
We had a guest on the show a couple of years ago, Monica.
Her name was Veronica Gray.
Veronica Gray, and she invented a
saw-
wetsuit.
I saw her on Good Morning America, literally on stage.
Is this the black and white thing?
Yeah,
The black and white thing.
yeah, the sea
Wow,
snake.
this guy's just dashing every dream of mine.
Okay. This first came about in the late 60s and 70s. People were using this because somebody, I can't remember if it was my sister-in-law or somebody sent me a picture of this. I don't know if you'd sent it to her or something, but and I looked at it and I go like, well, that looks like a throwback to the 60s because in the 60s and 70s they were experimenting with these suits that look like killer whales.
Right.
Black and white ones. And there was another one they used to do that emulated sea snakes.
Right.
And so, but this was all done years ago, and all I saw was like,
None of it worked.
no, none of it worked. But I'm thinking like, well, why are they doing this again? It's like, doesn't they think anybody's been around was around in the 70s? Remember?
Well, I just think a shark would suck a sea snake right down the head.
Tiger sharks, they love.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, why would you want to look like food?
Well, the
a
whole
sea
thing-
snake's food.
Well, yeah. Well, again, how many sea snakes are out here in the bay?
Right. Well, so this was a Hawaiian thing.
Oh
she
yeah,
had
yeah,
going
yeah.
on.
Okay, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Sea snake.
So again, bracelet or sea snake wetsuit? What should he be wearing in the warm bull shark territory?
Well, okay. I would see what the water clarity is first. If it's clear.
I'm gonna have a checklist to go surf now.
Well, here's the thing. In South Africa, which is really huge surfing. If you see Endless Summer, it's like
Jeffries.
Jeffries Bay,
Yeah,
and,
of course.
and the sharks breach in Jeffries Bay too, by the way.
Oh, there was a shark attack during a contest.
Yeah,
in
Mick
Jeffries.
Fanning, yeah.
Yeah, Mick Fanning got hit by a shark.
Yeah, and so
Actually, he hit the shark.
He did.
is that the one the shark came up right there?
and he
Yeah.
just started
Punching
pounding
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah, I have friends there that do a lot of diving, spearfishing. I have some friends that are big surfing and stuff, and the surfing guys, I grew up around here. I know, it happens. But as the spearfishing guys, because I used to do a lot of spearfishing around here, like when they're competing, I said, "What if you see like a white shark or something?" I said, well, as long as you see it. The one you don't see is the one you're worried about.
Right.
So
Right.
it was like so that's the one they'd be worried about. But like a popular spot like up in Durban, they have like the shark nets there. They have nets off the beaches. And one of the reasons they did that was if you go along that part of the coastline, it's all rivers. And where these rivers, the water's really brown coming out of there, and the bull sharks go up rivers to breed. And so you have these great surf breaks right at the river mouths, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
And then you got like these sharks that like to hang out there, and so it's not a really good mix of stuff.
The worst perfect storm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like off even Northern California. I went to Humboldt State, and you have like at times of the year you have the salmon coming up the river, you have the seals coming to feed on the salmon, and then you got the sharks coming to feed on the seals.
Right.
So if you're up and I used to do a lot of abalone diving up north, but you just kind of know like if you're around these river mouths when the salmon are coming up, there's a chance sharks are probably around.
Now, what about dolphins? Do sharks not like the dolphins, the pods of dolphins? They stay away.
They like to eat them once in a while.
Right,
but they're
They're fast.
They're fat. There are definitely instances where dolphins will deter sharks, and there's been documented records of that.
So,
as well.
because when I see the dolphins come, I always like,
That's
whew,
probably
that's
a
awesome.
That's probably a good thing. But the sharks do eat the dolphins sometimes. The white
Right.
sharks do eat the dolphins sometimes. But yeah, it's kind of a good thing when the dolphins are around. And I'm only saying this because again, it's not super hard and fast, but there are documented instances where dolphins have deterred sharks from attacking people.
Now the big question is, and this is going to be groundbreaking: do the dolphins like the shark band? Am I attracting the dolphins?
I have no idea.
We're going to say yes to that.
What they usually do, they're more like into echolocation,
Yeah.
and trying to find things. So I don't know how. I don't know. So we'll call that a yes.
All right, I get a W. You know what?
In regards to the great whites, though, it seems like they don't finish dinner when it comes to humans.
Yeah.
It's like a bite, and then they kind of...
Well, it gets into a lot of the behavior. 'Cause like with white sharks, they'll go in this. They'll come in and they'll sort of basically the bite and spit thing you probably heard. But they'll come in, they'll grab something, and again, these are things that usually the big ones will feed on, like elephant seals. And so, like, they hit the thing, and taking on an elephant seal is a big thing even for a white shark. They'll take it and they'll try to injure it basically, and then they'll hope for it'll bleed out, and then they'll feed on it. So, it contrasted like a bull shark. Bull sharks hit; they're just bang, 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 bang. They don't. They're literally like a bull. They're like just hit. They go at it. And I know this from people they've seen when bull sharks will attack something. They'll just go at it and keep going. Whereas like a white shark and even a tiger shark, they'll kind of come up and they'll bite, and then they'll kind of like let it go, and they'll come back, and then they'll circle around it, and sometimes they'll come back for another one. But bite. But if you're, this is when you have your chance. If you're not too badly injured, or someone's there to help get you out of the water.
But if they like elephant seals, what you need to find is a fat friend to surf with, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, hey, Neil, can I buy you some pizza at Pizza One?
He's been on it, I'll tell you what. Extra largest.
Let's add some pounds to my favorite friend.
Carbo load before the. Tell me a carbo load.
Yeah. Carb up, baby.
Well, you are famous at Pizza One, by the way. Yeah. They're like, the Neil Special, gotcha.
Wait, no. The Neil Special is Pizza One.
The pizza they vacuum is called the robot.
Well, I do know when you get the extra large, it's half gone by the time you get home. And you live close.
Right.
Yeah, so,
He's 200 steps away.
so Chris, our friend with the helicopter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's Chris's last name?
Gallardi.
Yeah, Gallardi.
Gallardi. He's talking about every time someone goes, when he was on the shore here maybe a few months ago, he's talked about every time someone goes and surfs at Manresa, you're going to get visited by a great white shark.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll know. A shark will know you're there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I know when I've gone up with them, this is kind of an interesting thing as well, is that you go up by the cement boat there, and it's mostly these small ones, these sort of young of the year. You go down to Manresa, and then they're like the big ones. And Chris tells me he sees that all the time, and I've seen that when I've been up with him. And like just the smaller ones, those sort of 6-8 foot ones, I mean they're big, but they're still mostly eat fish. And when I see them during the day, and Chris has said this, from his observations, they're just sort of hanging out off the beach there, and it's kind of funny because we'll be buzzing up there, and all these kids are playing in the surf. The parents are laying on the beach sunning themselves. And there's like 20 sharks swimming in the back of the surf line, because the white sharks actually hang out in back of the surf line, like when they're kind of resting or hanging out. And one of the reasons when they sometimes hunt in the surf is because when there's all that commotion there, that puts the shark in an advantage over the seal. When they're in the open water, past that, the seals are at a little better break. And I know from talking to, like, back in the day, abalone divers at the Farallones and a Seal Island in False Bay where they show the sharks breaching, there's like a kill zone where the sharks patrol. And if you're inside that or outside that, they won't bother you. They won't bother the seals. But when you cross that zone, that's what they're looking for.
The gauntlet.
We're going to finish talking about the wetsuit.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, but that's amazing, interesting. But and one thing more about Chris, he told us he could recognize behavior from all the time he spent in the helicopters.
Yeah.
By the way, that's specialized helicopters out of Watsonville.
Yeah.
He'll take you on a shark
great,
tour.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Talk about what's important, the murky water, because we have that in Manresa. You get
Sometimes, yeah,
you're in
it's
a
terrible.
murky spot,
Oh,
you're in the murky area, then right there is the clear area.
Yeah.
Well, another one that's really interesting. He's learned to put the helicopter in the shadow over the shark, and it kind of spooks him. He said.
Yeah, I could believe. Yeah.
Yeah,
told
and
me
so
that
like
too,
Chris is very interesting, not a scientist, very self-admitted.
Yeah.
He observes it, but he says he can sometimes tell the difference between a shark that's cruising and a shark that's hunting.
Well, the best people to speak to about like those types of behaviors are fishermen or someone like Chris who's up in the air all the time. People are on the water or over the water on a daily basis because you just can't. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the field, but I just can't be out in the field every single day. Of course, they're working. They're trying to fish or run his helicopter business, and so you see things. And when I was a grad student, I was always in the field, and you start to see stuff. Like one of the things I got early on in my career, I got a lot of notoriety for was I realized that sharks, 7-gill sharks, are initially hunting packs. And 7-gill sharks, for those who don't know, they get about 10 feet long, so they're a fairly good-sized shark.
They look like a great white, don't
yeah.
they?
Well, no, they're not. Well, to me, not maybe to
Right.
you, but they're
To the untrained eye.
yeah. If you go to the 7-gill sharks, if you go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, those are the big sharks they have in the tank there. Well, those things
like
actually,
great white.
what they do is they and I found this occurs in California and in South Africa is they'll hunt in packs, and they'll move in a group, and like one shark couldn't take out a 300-pound, 400-pound seal. But a pack of them can. If you can picture like a hyena's attacking something, 7-gills will work cooperatively to hunt like a seal. They'll pull it, get it out. They'll separate it out from the pack of the seals, and they'll attack it. And I documented that back when I was a grad student. And what I came to realize later is white sharks do the same thing. And that you guys are like this. Usually, if you see one shark, there's probably more around. Because they actually move in groups.
This has gone bad to worse.
So they're, and
I'm going to go surf Slater's pool.
if I could tell you, I mean, I know you got a lot of surfers watching the show, but there was a when I was in South Africa, there was a pretty horrific shark attack occurred down in Clifton Beach on the west coast near Cape Town, and I actually talked to the guy who was in back of the guy who was hit. And the surfer, they were just sitting on their boards, and this guy got hit by a white shark. Initially pulled him down. The guy kind of popped up, and he wasn't that badly injured. But what happened was he was kind of like trying to get to his board to paddle in. A second shark came in, hit him, and ran with him, and then spit him out. Then the other shark came and grabbed him, and these two sharks were playing with this guy. And the way it was described to me was it was like two cats playing with a mouse. They weren't trying to kill it; they were just playing. Is what it struck. And there, people were watching this They got into the beach there, and they were trying to get this guy's body back. And he'd kind of like roll into the surf, and they try to go get it. And one shark would run in, grab the body, and pull it out. I know this sounds really graphic, but this is
like the Jaws shark right there.
yeah,
That is really heavy.
and there are people watch this. And I mean, I was aware of this attack, but they said haven't talked to somebody who was right there. And he said, yeah, it literally reminded him of like two cats playing with a mouse. And they never didn't, and they finally, eventually, the sharks left, and they got the guy, what was left of them, but they never ate them. They were just like playing with them.
Is that abnormal great white behavior?
No, well, this gets into the whole thing. I think there's a lot more behaviors that go on with sharks and with white sharks. I don't spend a lot of time. I did a lot of some white shark early on in my career, but I don't really work on white sharks. There's plenty of people work on white sharks, trust me, as you probably know. But there's a lot of behaviors that go on that people get little glimpses of. Like, I've seen times where like sharks, there's like a whale carcass there, and you'll see white sharks work cooperatively on how there's a feeding order and how they'll feed. And that's just a matter of just sitting there and having some patience to watch what's going on. I think a lot of times I spend a lot of time talking to fishermen and people on the water a lot. And a lot of times people in my field they'll go out in the research boats and stuff, but they're not really talking to the guys that that are there all the time. Right. And so that's the thing is to me those are the guys that know what's going on. Is talking to the fishermen. And whenever I go to places all over the world, most people never even heard of, but I try to find somebody there, a local who's maybe a conservationist, a researcher and stuff, and I'll go talk and talk to the fishermen. And it doesn't matter if I'm in China or Zanzibar where they're speaking Swahili or Portuguese. You work it out, you figure it out. And I just learned like a whole bunch of stuff. Like I did a show a few years ago. I did a lot of the Alien Shark series for Shark Week, and one of the shows.
Why is it called Alien Shark?
Because it doesn't do white. It's anything but white sharks, okay. And that's what my specialty is, right. Is finding these things. And they called me up. And they wanted to do some kind of another Alien Shark show, and they said, well, "Can you have any ideas?" I said, "How about if we go out and we tag a megamouth shark?" And they're like, a megamouth shark. You guys are familiar?
Nope.
Anyway, it
sounds big.
It's a big shark. Gets about 8 meters, 23 feet.
23 feet.
Yeah, it
size of your SUP.
It feeds on shrimp and krill. And it was one of the big discoveries in the latter part of the 20th century. This huge shark, who thought there's 20-foot sharks still out there we didn't discover. The first one was discovered off Hawaii, actually.
Big mouth, scoop them all
huge
up.
mouth, yeah. Yep. It's a huge mouth. and it has a reflective mouth that attracts like krill. And so, because I used to spend I lived in Taiwan, and I knew a lot of the guys there. I got onto a fisherman at this port that basically explained to me, like, well, there's a 6-week time of the year where we know we can catch these things, and they don't try to catch them. They're fishing some other stuff, but these things are accidentally caught in the net. They don't really like to catch them, but they're accidentally caught. And so I was like, okay. So I told the Discovery guy, says, let's go get a megamouth. Of course, they're like, heads are going to explode. Like, oh my God, are you sure? So we can get a megamouth shark. And this is the kind of stuff I could never get funding in a million years to do this. But for a TV show, they'll do it.
Hollywood.
Yeah, they'll do it. And
Sponsor dollars.
And they were kind of like, of course, then you get in this whole thing like, well, we need to go at this time to film. I says, no, they're not going to be there. We need to be here at this particular time to get them. And so, because I talked to this fisherman, they knew exactly the time of year and the conditions you had to be in to catch these things. So they said, okay, well, we'll go do this thing. And they thought, like, there's like no chance this guy's gonna actually get a megamouth there. No way. So we go down there, first night out, megamouth shark.
Nice.
And so and we tagged it, put a satellite tag on, let this thing out go, and they were just. I still remember, like, there was one of the fixer for the shows on the boat there on a satellite phone to the production crew, like back in Maryland. They got a megamouth.
Wow.
They got a fucking megamouth. And
You can say that.
okay, they got a fucking megamouth. Yeah. And so, and they're like, okay, no, don't tell anybody we got one. They couldn't. They couldn't believe it. Cause I said, well, yeah, it's like, you're talking to the guy here. I'm the guy that you get a hold of for these things. But I got onto that because of a fisherman in this village who I knew through a mutual contact, and the guy didn't speak a lick of English. But I was able to communicate through him through a Taiwanese colleague. He explained to me the whole situation, the conditions you want to be in, where to get them. And I said, if we could go out here, we'll get them. And we did.
How big was the one you guys got?
It was about 14 feet.
Okay, so not the biggest, but
no, I mean they
big
get
enough.
that big.
Right.
Did you get more after that, or did you just
one
stop?
of the boats out there got another one. We got two. Yeah, we got two. They're happy we got one.
So did you have it in your contract? If you performed that way, you got a huge bonus.
That's a whole other discussion.
Okay, all right.
Were you in the act of fishing? Like, what normally would they be fishing for?
They usually fish for ocean sunfish, mola mola. That's what they actually go for.
Do people eat mola mola?
In China, yeah.
Wow.
They do.
That's
what
not sound good.
No.
But what happened? The thing is, that's what they're fishing for, the mola mola. But they incidentally catch the megamouth sharks.
Right.
As I say, there's certain conditions they'll go into. Like the guy's like, at the time, well, they won't get them, and they won't. But when we went out, it's like, we'll get them tonight. And you think they don't get a bunch of them. They catch one or two, in a set. But there's a time of year they know there's a good chance they'll get them, and so they'll.
You have other sharks like that where you know where to go at certain times of year to do your research?
Yeah, well, a lot of times I find out when I go someplace, I go, let's go check out this area. Or I had a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I had a guy contact of mine in Sri Lanka send me this picture of this really unusual shark. And I'm looking at this thing going like, shit, I think this is a whole new species. This is like a new thing. There's only one other species known in this genus. It's from the Red Sea. And I go, but this is now in Sri Lanka. And I'm going like, Christ, I think this is a new species. So coincidentally, I was going to Sri Lanka in about 6 months. And so when I got there, my colleagues there in Sri Lanka, I said, hey, let's do it, guys. And I pulled up my phone. I said, I want to go to this port. I want to see if we can find this thing. So we did a whole bunch of stuff around some of the areas. That was a cool trip in itself because we went all up into, if you're familiar with Sri Lanka, the whole northern area is all Tamil area, and they were in a brutal civil war.
Forever, right?
Yeah, and so I was one of the first Westerners to go in there and look for sharks. That's the kind of shit I do.
Wow.
So and then you're going out there and you're like, yeah, you want to stay away from here because this is the landmine field. We're still clearing over here.
Do you fake you're Canadian when you do on those trips?
Yeah, you start saying a lot.
Depends what country you're in. Some places you can't get away with it.
Not American, eh?
Now, where are you from? Canada.
Hey there, little buddy, how you doing? So I said, well, I want to go to this one port. So we said, okay, yeah. So we went to all these other places, and we said we went to this one port. And so, and when you show up there, he's like, let's look if there's anything going on. So we found a couple of the guys. We saw a couple of guys coming in the boat. And so I went over and talked to him. I pulled out my camera phone, which I couldn't have done this like 5 years ago. And I showed him this picture of this shark, and one of the guys out in the boat. And they're like, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. So we come back tomorrow, and I only had a couple of days at this one particular spot. I come back tomorrow, and the guys come in, and he goes, come over. shit, they got one.
Wow.
And I was
So
like,
wait, they knew where to get him, and they're fishing for him.
well, what happened? Well, here's the thing: is the guy I go, do you catch these very often? He goes, well, we got 3 yesterday. We just throw them back, so they're not worth anything. And so, like, which is kind of good, they're throwing them back, but it's like, so he only kept one because I asked him to bring it in. Yeah, it was a whole new species of shark. And he brought me, of course, I was doing like cartwheels, I was like going, fist pumps, I was running around, I was going nuts. And like, then later I thought, God, thank God I didn't hurt myself, like running around.
So there are more out there for you.
Oh yeah, so and you find, like I said, I got like 3 new ones going to be published in the next month or so. So the problem is it's like a CSI. What I do is like you find them, find them in the field. That's kind of the fun part. I think it's kind of fun, but a lot of people don't. You got to come back and you almost do like a CSI type of thing because you got to compare it to what it's similar to explain why it's different. And so I go through and I do a whole description of it. And you have to get it published, so it's a historical document. And then the thing I tell, like I have students work on this stuff, with me and stuff. And for a lot of them, it's like one of their first papers they get published. And I says, you can send your great grandkids can come to like the California Academy of Sciences. They can pull out this shark, and this is the one that you named like 3 generations ago, and it'll always be there because it's like a historical document.
Yeah,
Wow.
The new book that you have, what's it called?
Sharks of the World.
It's just pictures of sharks and
It's
an explanation of where they are, or what their
it
behavior is, or
it basically it has a description, the geography, a little bit of their life history if we know anything about their life history of the shark, and then what their sort of conservation status is. And it has every shark in the world.
And how many sharks that shark you talked about, you tracking the shark. How many sharks are you tracking?
I don't really do much. I don't do the tracking stuff much.
Okay.
I have other people do that. I mean, there's other people that do that stuff. They're experts at it. I just never got into the tracking stuff. It's kind of when you do like a Shark Week show, they always want you to put a tag in something. So I'll put a tag on, and I'll call some of my friends up and say, yeah, I got a tag out there. When it gets in, I'll let you play with the data for me. Thanks. But
Right. You want to discover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an explorer at heart. That's what I do. I like to go out, go to some place. I mean, they used to joke like they'd drop me in outer Mongolia and give me a week, and I'll be sitting there with the village elders.
So for your field of shark discovery, the coolest spot on the planet?
It's a place I haven't been to yet. Seriously, it's a place I have.
Do you know that place?
I've got a few in mind. Yes.
What continent?
It's on 3 different continents.
We're getting into top secret stuff right now, Neil.
Can we get a treasure map of that?
I could give you one, but I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, right. I got a shark band on. I think I'm pretty secure.
To bring it back to a little bit to the Santa Cruz, I was
Yeah.
curious what you would think is our largest great white shark currently swimming in Monterey Bay. I
have no freaking idea. There's probably what's interesting here is a lot of the ones you see some that get maybe up to 18 feet, and again, I hate to put a size on it. When I've been up with Chris and stuff, and I've done this other place in the world, been up in a helicopter. Sometimes you're like, holy fuck, that's a big shark. But you don't always, but seriously, when a white shark gets over about 12 or 14 feet, whether it's 14 feet or 18 feet, it's a big fucking shark.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, they got one in the harbor. Someone got
Yeah.
it fishing, and it was in the hoist at they pull the yachts out at the boatyard. It filled the hoist.
Yeah.
It was well over 20 feet.
Do you spend much time with the feral ones out there?
No. Years ago.
What happened when that orca took out that great white and all the great whites disappeared?
Well, the orca's got a nice meal.
Yeah.
And,
And apparently on that show,
And the sharks
Yeah,
got
that was-
evicted.
great whites all like gone.
Yeah, they probably, I don't know how much it was followed up on, but yeah, when the orcas kind of showed up, and that's kind of been going on in South Africa from what people, I know where the locations are, but these orcas have shown up in some of the areas where they normally see white sharks. This is down in the Western Cape area, Cape Town, and sort of in that Dyer Island, in that area. But what's interesting is when I was there last year, I talked to some of the dive guys, and they're telling me like, oh yeah, up in Durban and kind of north of Durban towards Mozambique, we're seeing a lot more white sharks up here now than we used to.
Orcas moved them out.
So I
Is
think-
an orca a shark species?
No, it's a whale, or it's a type of dolphin actually. It's a whale, it's a dolphin.
Are they the top of the food chain?
Well, if they're eating the white sharks, I guess they'd put
Yeah,
them
they
up
put
there.
them at the top.
Yeah, they're up. Yeah, I mean, kind of the orca, white shark,
Right. It'd be a good grudge match.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we bring more into the bay?
Well, there's lots of orcas out here.
Yeah, they just got a whale last week.
Yeah.
You probably heard about that. They got one out in the bay, and then the great white was. Did you see that footage? there was a whale, and the great white was coming straight out of the water and getting a big bite and going back in straight down.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was crazy
that's
behavior.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on Santa Cruz Waves, actually.
Okay.
I believe they have a video of it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I from when I was a kid, I mean, orchids have always seasonally they're out here, and they're mostly feed on the gray whales. So that kind of partitions them out a little bit because they're probably focusing more on the gray whales, and the white sharks are feeding probably more on the seals, even though the orchids do eat the seals. And there'd sort of be I remember when I was growing up around here, there'd be like sort of like kind of the summertime, like usually July, August, when the white sharks would sort of start to show up, and then the fall, there'd be like sharks would be around out here. And then they sort of disappear at the end of the year, January, for a while. Now they see these little ones. And this is the interesting thing is everybody focuses on the big sharks, the white sharks, but these little ones are the fascinating story. Because I don't think these things were very common until the last 5 or 6 years. They used to be mostly Southern California, Ventura, and then down the Southern California bights where they used to show up a lot. And they still do. What I think, and this is again, I think it's a good story, is that it shows the health of the population. That now they've not just moved up here; they tend to be here seasonally now. From about
You're talking about the baby sharks,
the
smaller
baby
ones?
sharks,
Yeah.
the smaller ones. And white sharks are born; they're about 6 feet, almost 5-6 feet when they're
Oh,
born.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're big when they're born
Yeah.
already. So, but the ones out here I usually see they're in that sort of 6 foot, 8 foot, and so those white sharks when they're first born, they grow like a lot of shark species actually grow pretty quickly when they're first born, then they'll slow down later on. But I think these sharks, but the ones out here though, these little ones, I think that's all new because of the Marine Mammal Protection Act, the seal population, the protection of the white sharks. I think there's a combination of those things that you're seeing them, the little ones up here more. Because again, when I was growing up, if you're surfing or diving, you just knew they were around there.
And it seems like the fishery's more protected now.
Oh yeah,
all the way up from a squid to
Right.
anchovy. Everything
Yeah.
seems like it's doing better in the bay.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the health of the bay is great. I mean, they should be patting themselves in the back, whoever they are, because it
Right,
really
yeah.
is in a good situation. I mean, I've been in places where they could use some more
Well, thank you
here.
for that.
But the thing is, it gets in this whole thing where you always hear too, and I've been very involved with the IUCN, the Shark Specialist Group and stuff, and a lot of the conservation stuff, but they always talk about, and this kind of cuts across the board. You talk about the doom and gloom, but like, hey, you got a good story out here. Let's tell it.
Right,
So,
yeah,
Because
totally.
otherwise, people think like, why are we doing all this? Because nothing works. Well, if you give a positive story, hey, it worked out here.
I'm not really sure positive in the news works anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like,
The theory of the kelp, everyone thinks, they don't go swim through the kelp, but we're good right here because the kelp is right here.
keep thinking that.
And
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one's been debunked too, huh?
Yeah, I think there's been. Yeah, they've seen. I have never seen. And I've never seen a white shark while I've been diving. Thank God. It's like, even though I study sharks, like seeing one diving really wouldn't give me any kind of a thrill. Seeing one from the boat or the helicopter is great. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need to be in the water, especially. We were talking earlier. It's like when that ignorance is bliss. Like when I was a young guy, I used to go spearfishing out here all the time, and I loved it. We'd take a Hawaiian swing and just get a few fish for dinner and stuff. I was like, yeah, the sharks around, but once you kind of realize like what these things can do, you're thinking like, yeah, it probably wasn't like the best.
Like that story in South Africa.
Yeah.
What Chris talked about with Ben Kelly, the young man that got killed.
Yeah.
He was talking about where he sees the adults kind of swimming out to the canyon to eat. And he says he thinks that one there got kind of lazy and go, I'm not swimming all the way out there and getting my food. I'm just gonna kind of hike it down the beach over here.
I mean, I don't know all the details, but it sounded like it was just amazing. What a massive bite, 1 or 2 bites, and then that was it. And so I think the point is, there's not a lot of instances of the white shark actually consuming people,
Right.
and so that kind of tells you like,
It's a mistake.
yeah,
But it's where they hit you.
Is it wetsuit? Is it warm-blooded? What is it that you think would be
There's
that?
a lot of speculation. People think like the silhouette could tell it's a person. They can't distinguish it from a seal or a surfer and stuff. And I think a lot of times, these guys, and I've seen a few where people actually caught video footage of an attack where they were in the surf. And I think the sharks just comes in the surf and it's just literally mistakes it for a seal.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think we go full circle, go back to the movie from when you started, because we can go drive over Highway 17, cross the road over here.
Right.
Right. I always say more dangerous crossing the road to go surfing
Right,
than go
we
swimming.
come back full circle to where you started, because we talk about shock, all the shock attacks, but it's so rare.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it is rare. And the thing is, I think people, like, if you grew up around here, you just take it, like if you surf, you dive, you just sort of take it, or paddleboard, and this is the same thing in South Africa. The people around that grew up around the ocean, they just take it for sake. But when you get people come in from over the hill, the valley that aren't used to that, then that's where people get a little more concerned. Or people get more, and that's one of the reasons. Like when you go up to Durban, they'll have like shark nets there, is because the big tourist thing, or the locals aren't the tourists. It's the people coming in from elsewhere that aren't around the ocean all the year, and so those are the ones that a lot of the nets are more for just a security thing, kind of like your ankle bracelet. Because what most of the sharks they do catch are swimming out, because they swim in at night. Because those barriers are not continuous; they're just set in sections. So the sharks seem to swim in at night to the beaches. Then on the way out, they get caught.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Any truth to yum yum yellow? Because I've heard people say that yellow is like a. No, I've had one yellow.
This is a family show.
That's just going downhill.
I've had one yellow surfboard in my life. One yellow surfboard. And everyone's like, oh, yum yum yellow, what are you doing? Don't ever have a yellow surfboard.
I think that the prevailing feeling, there is something to the bright colors. It does have some attraction to them, but everybody out here has some kind of a wild, because you obviously want to find your board if when you fall off.
Right.
So some guys going through here with some wild rainbow colors thing. There seems to be something that there is a bit of an attraction for with the wetsuit or the surfboard and stuff. I wouldn't wear a yum yum yellow thing, but back at I used to do a lot of diving like in the 70s and in the 80s. They used to have those horse collar. You remember the horse collar buoyancy?
Oh, right.
Now you got the nice ones you put on with the tanks and everything.
Right,
Yeah, one around your neck, right?
Yeah, the ones they're like a horse collar thing. Well, those all used to be like bright
Yellow.
red and bright yellow. Exactly.
Right, yeah.
So you could find somebody in the water, and you have to weigh out like, well, if I'm in trouble, do I want the Coast Guard to find me, or do I want the sharks to find me?
So there is maybe some truth to yum yum yellow.
There is some truth to that. Yes.
Wow,
So I
okay.
need to paint Meals board yellow. Is what you're
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah.
Got
Or
it.
maybe
All
your
right.
bracelet.
Note to self. Note to
Something about
self.
like
So I
that.
think to end the show, we've debunked the bracelet.
The bracelet?
It's a complete waste of fucking time.
I'm just
$80 down the
I
drain.
know, man.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody out there want to buy a bracelet? Half off.
Call Sean.
Well, are you going to wear it?
You know what? I don't know, because you kind of scare me. It could attract sharks.
Right.
Yeah. So
This is a great question. I mean,
yeah, I don't think I
But you know
am.
what though? You may be surfing by yourself for a while. You
Right?
get the whole break yourself.
I know. Yeah.
you want to go surf next to him
I
because
don't.
they're going to bite his ankle.
So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been doing? Your career's been how long? Since,
Almost 40 years.
40 years?
Yeah, it does.
TC, ask him the question.
Good,
I get the second part.
Okay, well, so we always ask our seasoned guests.
Thank you.
Yeah. Their favorite decade and why.
I'd have to say probably the 80s, because I was traveling around the world. I was a grad student and had no money and time, and just was awesome. I went to South Africa, which was the greatest experience I ever had at the time, and I had some pretty amazing experience. I wasn't just in South Africa, but I was there at a very dynamic time, and that I was there when Nelson Mandela got out. And I was actually, if you see the thing, I was actually out there in the crowd there at the Grand Parade.
Wow.
I actually
That's
had,
cool.
it was pretty cool. It was very dynamic. So I've had some interesting experiences. I always tell when I speak to audiences, I say, I went to look for sharks, but I found a lot of other things. Because I grew up in Prunedale, and like another quick story is that when I was 26, I got this like travel grant, and I found myself in Tokyo, Japan, at the Royal Palace having dinner with the Emperor of Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm from Prunedale, for crying out loud. We tip cows out there.
Yeah, Prune Tucky.
But I had this, it's one of these things where I was just finished my master's, and I hadn't gone overseas yet, and they had this National Science Foundation thing to fund like a dozen shark people. I figured they're going to let all these like PhD, which they mostly did. I was the only guy who didn't have a PhD, and I got selected. I just applied for this thing, and I got it. And part of the whole thing, the Emperor of Japan he's an ichthyologist. He studies fish, mostly gobies, but he invited all of us to the Royal Palace. I got to meet him, shake hands with him, met the Empress and
What's for
stuff.
dinner?
That's cool. Yeah.
It was the best sushi I ever had.
Oh yeah.
And,
Wow.
so-
Well, my experience with dinners like that in Japan is you never speak until you're spoken to. Like you never pour your own wine.
Oh, yeah,
There's
no.
like some very very rules.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
learned that at
there's
26.
There's a certain protocol.
That's
The
awesome.
second part of this question, or our question, is is there a certain day that you had that you will never forget, that lays in infamy for you in the work that you've done?
Yeah, there's a couple of them, but probably the one day I didn't get eaten by a white shark was probably the.
You did
rank
get
up
eaten
there.
by a white shark.
Yeah, I was had a. This is why this is one of the things I look back like in the 80s, looking on the grad student. A good friend of mine, because back then, the younger people don't get this, but back in the day, you didn't have like cell phones, GPS. You had a map and a compass, and like we went off to Namibia to like explore basically, because nobody had ever explored the sharks up the whole way up to the Skeleton Coast. And so my friend, Paul, is a fellow grad student. We just literally told a few people, our advisors, like, we're going to be gone for 8 weeks, and if you don't hear from us in 10, come look for us. Because there was like, you come to towns and stuff, but then you had to like put in some money to like have a 2-minute call.
Right.
And so we'd say, we'll let you know like when we're back like in some civilization. Well, this one little place we went to, this little town called Luderitz, and we had and we wanted to, and everybody said, oh, you got to go out here. There's lots of 7-gills out here. There's lots of 7-gills.
What's a 7-gill?
7-gills. Oh yeah, most sharks have 5 gills on each side of their head. There's about 8 species that have 6 gills on each side, and there's 2 species that have 7 gills. And one of
So
those.
4 on one, 3 on the other?
No, it's 5. It's 5 or 6 or 7 on one side, and then on the other side it'd be a total of like 14.
Okay.
And there's only no sharks have less than 5. And one of the 2 species, the broad-nosed 7-gill occurs here. It's really common in the bays, and that was a species I was working on for my PhD. So we get. I'll spare the longer story, which is we'll have more beers for that one. That's a really good one too. But we got to know this guy in this total Wild West town called Luderitz, and he loaned us this little like 10-foot fiberglass rowboat, and we thought, well, great, we'll row out into the lagoon and see if we can catch some of these sharks. Well, Christ, guy wasn't kidding. There were like piles of these sharks just all around the boat, these 7-gills, and so.
How big were they? Big?
Yeah, the biggest ones we had are 8 feet. And we'd catch some of them, put them in the boat, and then we'd row to shore, about a kilometer or so, and offload them. And then we'd row back out and get a few more, and then we'd start work them up. And I mean, we're in the desert too, so it's like 120 degrees during the day. And so the one day we're out there doing this, and there's nobody around. I mean, the town's a couple kilometers away, and we're just out there in my trucks parked on the beach with a little trailer. And it's a fiberglass boat. I mean, you could take your fist and just punch a hole in it. So we're out there, and my friend has this, Paul has this 7-gill like right by the boat, and I was getting ready to just gaff it to pull into the boat. And all of a sudden, the water just turns white. And your mind's processing what's going on. You can't really process what the hell's going on at that moment. But what happened was this white shark showed up. We never saw this thing. It was on its back, which it was displaying is what it was doing. And it bit this shark that we had on a hook, and I was almost going to gaff. And it spit the shark out, and the shark's going like this on its belly. And we're sitting there looking at this thing going, and I'm in a 10-foot boat, and this thing's just going. This tail comes flopping by. So our adrenaline was kind of going, as you might imagine, at the moment. So Paul reels in the shark. I pull it into the boat. And we're going like, oh man, that is so cool! And like I get my camera, taking pictures of this bite mark in the 7-gill, and like he's sitting to me like a view like this, and then all of a sudden we look at each other like we're gonna die.
Yeah, you got the Cujo shark.
All of a sudden that like the adrenaline's going, you're not thinking all of a sudden. Then all of a sudden like, holy shit, there's like probably a 15-foot shark right here. We're gonna die right now.
Right.
And we're in a rowboat, and there's 7-gills still swimming around. So. What we did is what we did is
We rode really fast.
It was like the cartoon.
You ever seen the cartoon?
Yeah.
What we did was we had we tied off a bait and he threw it in the water, and another 7-gill grabbed it, and so we let that one run and we was playing it. And I'm rowing like hell, as you could imagine, because the white shark would go for the distress shark on the thing, and we rowed into the shore. Just kind of pulled the boat in the shore, and we're just like going, fuck. And so, and the one good part was we had some beers on ice in there.
That's perfect.
And we literally just had a freaking piss up that night. And we're just like, we're we're alive, buddy.
Yeah, wow.
And we're sitting there with these sharks, and then and the cool thing, I wish they, again, if digital cameras and stuff, GoPros been cool, but we're sitting there, we held a little fire, and we're just going like, fuck, I can't believe we're alive. All they would have found was like truck on the beach, and they had no fucking
fiberglass.
A piece of bone.
And then, I can't stress, this is remote. Like the town was a couple kilometers away. I mean, literally, all they would have found was there. And then, but it was kind of cool. Is like when you're in the desert, you think you're in the desert. What's there? Well, you got brown hyenas come out of nowhere. They start feeding on the sharks on the beach. You got elephants walking around, and we're just going, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" And we're just like going like we're alive.
Wow.
Right.
So
So
great
that was-
story.
Sharks, just ocean creatures, or you see them in the Great Lakes at all, or large lakes?
Well, bull sharks are. Well, there's a couple. There's bull sharks do go up rivers, and there's actually been one caught up in, I think it was Alton, Illinois, in the Mississippi. It was a bull shark caught up there back in probably back in the 50s, I think. I don't remember why. So they will migrate fairly far up the rivers. There's another group of sharks that are called river sharks, and they mostly occur in sort of Indonesia, India, Southeast Asia, and we mostly know them because they occur in rivers. We think they do go out. We do know a little bit. They do go out to the ocean or where the kind of brackish water, but we mostly know them from being in the rivers, and they get up to about 8 or 10 feet.
Right.
Isn't there a lake that has some sharks in it too?
Well, there's Lake Nicaragua in Central
Right,
America.
yes.
And they actually described those as a new species back 100 years or so ago, but it turns out that they're bull sharks that got into the river.
But Nicaragua doesn't have bull sharks in the surf there, though, right?
I haven't been there, but
Because I know when I went there, they were like, oh yeah, no, the bull sharks aren't in the ocean. So are they just in the lake then?
no.
Or are they on the other side?
Well, they're on both sides, but I don't know. Like, there's probably some areas where they're more common than
Yeah.
others. And I say if the water's clear where you're surfing down
Yeah.
there, the bull sharks I wouldn't be as concerned about them. It's when you get into where you get the turbid water, murky water. This is where they tell you, like at night, it's not probably as good to be there. Bull sharks get really aggressive when it's dark, because that's when they're at their hunting advantage. When it's dark, murky water, dark. That's when they're at an advantage. When it's clear, they stay away.
They wait for the murky water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great show.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doctor.
cool.
Dr. David Ebert, 30 books written on sharks.
And the next book is what?
Next book, Sharks of the World. It'll be out July 20th, Amazon, Princeton University Press.
Is that a coffee table book? Is that
It's
it
one
like,
that'll help you identify any shark. It is. It's a
Field
nice. It's a
guide?
nice book. Yeah, it's a field guide type of book. So it's something. It's a bit of a big book, but I have a companion book on a pocket guide that's a little smaller coming out just after that.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
And
So-
where can people find that at?
You can find it'll be on Amazon,
Okay.
Princeton University Press. If you follow me, Lost Shark Guy on Instagram or Facebook,
Yeah.
I'll be posting on it.
Okay.
Lost Shark Guy
Shark.
Lost Shark
on
Guy
Instagram.
Yeah.
on Instagram.
And your next trip is where?
Well, as soon as they lift this description, I'll be going to Africa probably.
Back to Africa.
Yeah.
And just real quick reminder, everybody, how many sharks have you discovered?
Over 50.
Over 50 you've
Yeah.
been able to discover and identify and name.
Yeah.
And the chances
Congratulations.
Chances of you naming a new one after our show is probably pretty slim.
Well, depends if there's any little thing in an envelope out there.
See how much you got to
I got a couple bucks.
Hey, I'll throw in $1.
Well, it's great having you on the show tonight.
Doctor.
Very enlightening. I love we debunked Sean's ankle bracelet.
Finally.
Yeah,
That's great.
we've
I don't
been-
know what you guys are going to talk about.
We're-
right?
we're-
I mean, this is
yeah.
going to be a
No,
flat
we're gonna
show.
No, we're going to keep talking about how we debunked it. Is what we're going to talk about.
You got to lose 3 or 4 years more.
Thank you again, Santa Cruz Waves. Neil, you want to talk about some sponsors?
I don't have my computer here today, so I got Chill Out Cafe. We've
They
got,
roll the
We
fatties.
got all the fatties. We got Beach Nest Vacation. We got
Yes,
we
we
Sean
do.
Roby, Farmers Insurance.
Right?
That guy.
Michael's going to tomorrow.
Sean Roby.
Plus a
Thank
shark
you-
bracelet for
Thank you to all
sale.
the sponsors. They're all listed on the Off-It Radio Show Facebook page and on the website.
Yes, they
all
are.
the sponsors, I want to thank them because without them the show would be
We would be nothing.
nothing.
We're barely above nothing, but we would
We
really
got
be
a lot of
nothing.
good music coming up, TC.
Right? Are you gonna hit Pizza One on the way home tonight?
No.
Come on,
Come
bro.
on, Neil, you need to. I need to have that bigger, larger surfing buddy.
Yeah. And a yellow wetsuit would be awesome too.
I got the paint. I'm going to paint his board tonight.
Yeah. You're saying it, girlfriend?
Triple extra large. Yum yum yellow.
I'll say
Hello, yum yum yellow.
Thanks, Doc.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It's been fun.
All right, we'll see you next week on the Off Lip Radio Show.
Oh, next week,
Yes, sir.
the kids.
the SoCal High Jazz
Did you see
Band.
Jim in here?
No, they're gonna fit. We're gonna have a
19,
huge band.
20 kids in here playing the SoCal High Jazz Band.
And-
Just stuff them in here.
Those guys rock out.
Rock
Tune
out.
in next week
Yep.
for the SoCal High Jazz Band.
And that's right.
Good night,
Thanks for watching,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks for tuning
Thanks.
in.
Bye bye. Thanks, guys.